So one of the problems with going last, and following really smart people is they've covered 80% of what I had to say. And very well, I might add. Lauren, I'm actually a curly fry guy more than a tater tot guy, but I know where you're going with that. I get it. I get it. I'm delighted to be here at Howard Law School with all of you. It's a special place for me and for my family. As you heard, my grandfather was a law professor and dean here in the late 20s and 30s. We're in Houston Hall. A little more recent history, just this past week, my niece was accepted into Howard Law's class of 2019. So we're going to try to make that happen. I was telling my fiance on the way here that I don't really get nervous anymore when I give talks, but I also don't usually give them at Howard in Houston Hall. So forgive me if I'm a little bit jittery. May or may not be 4 cups of coffee, but we'll talk about that later. I'm here today because I care deeply about the profession. This is an amazing program. This is my second time speaking to one of these events, and I want to just take another moment to commend Evangeline for all that she's done in putting together these important and meaningful programs. The last time I spoke at one of her conferences was in 2014, back in Houston, and as we heard from our first speaker, Seth, a young law student, right? This conference has a legacy now of creating young law students who are rounding the bend and on their way to becoming lawyers, and that's such an important, meaningful thing, and it's such a meaningful thing to be a social engineer, and I use that term deliberately, and I see Lee nodding. I'll talk about that term later, but remember it, social engineer. A little about me, just a little. I went to Loyola New Orleans for undergrad, and then University of Texas for law school. I graduated in 1997. I am currently Assistant General Counsel for Global Compliance and Enterprise Risk Management International. I do compliance work. Most of what I do is in the international space, and it's my job to make sure that we are doing what we need to do, that my company is following the applicable anti-corruption laws. Any of you who watch the news, you've seen the scandals involving FIFA, right, and the pay-for-play action with the World Cup. It's my job to make sure that we are following the applicable laws, that we are not out there bribing people and currying favor through illegal means. I do more than that, but that's the gist of it. Before that, I was a litigator in Arizona primarily. Tried cases. I was outside counsel. I was in-house counsel for a big company, managing litigation. I've kind of done it all. I've been a sole practitioner. I taught a class or two here and there. So I've seen a lot of different sides of the legal profession. My goal here today is to give you the unvarnished truth. Right? All of us have had experiences, good and bad, and I want you to hear about some of mine. And I want to be encouraging, but I also want to be honest. As I said, standing here in Houston Hall is kind of special for me. It's inspiring to be standing here where it all started, and by that I mean we are sitting here at the ideological and philosophical seat of the civil rights movement, of the fight to end legal desegregation in the United States. We're standing on, to borrow Seth's phrase, hallowed ground of an institution that earned its name as the West Point of civil rights law. The place where my grandfather worked and taught and wrote and inspired generations of lawyers who would change the course of American jurisprudence. This is where Houston and his students and colleagues came up with their plan to send Plessy v. Ferguson's doctrine of separate but equal into a death spiral. This is the place where luminaries such as Justice Marshall, Robert Carter, Spotswood Robinson, so many more, all studied and worked together to end de jure segregation in American public schools. It's also the place where one of my favorite people went to law school. Some of you may have heard the name Damon J. Keith. He is a judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. He is a 1949 graduate of Howard School of Law. I talked to him just the other day. I called him in his office, and he wished me luck and asked me to pass along his regards to the good folks at Howard. And I want you to think about the dates that I just mentioned. Class of 1949, I just called him in his office. He's still working. This man went onto the bench in 1967, still on the bench. It's a lifetime appointment. He plans to fulfill that. All right. 49 years on the bench, class of 49, there's a certain beautiful symmetry to it. He's also a dear friend and mentor of mine, and a man to whom I owe a debt that I cannot even begin to explain. I hope that you'll take advantage not only of this conference itself and all that it has to offer, but that you'll also consider the place of prominence and impact that this particular institution has had on American history. And that you'll think about that as you make your decision about whether and where to go to law school. Can I just ask, by show of hands, how many of you are certain that you're going to law school? So the vast majority. That's wonderful. That's great. As I mentioned, this is my second time speaking to this conference. When I first spoke back in Houston, I had no idea what to expect. I was blown away by the poise and the intellect and just the curiosity of the students that I met. And I haven't had a chance to meet any of you guys today yet, but I hope after the session that we can talk and I'm available. Our goal here is to help you realize your goal of not only getting into law school, but also succeeding once you're there. The other speakers and I hope to provide you with a little bit of context and texture for your decision by sharing our personal experiences. And you've heard some of that, and you'll hear some more. But I want to be cognizant of our time. Nobody's ever told me that my speeches were too short. So we're going to get in and out pretty quickly here. You've all heard this is a terrible job market for lawyers. You're all watching the news. You're all aware of current events. You may have even had people tell you that you shouldn't go to law school. I hope that this conference and that what you hear today will help you understand what those kinds of comments really are, which is background noise that you shouldn't really listen to. It's there. People are going to talk and yammer. Don't let that distract you from what you want to do. If you want to be a lawyer, be a lawyer. The economy is what the economy is. And guess what? It's going to be different in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. Being a lawyer is forever. So the next time somebody tells you that you shouldn't do something because you can't, I hope you'll think and ask yourself the question, who are you to tell me what I can't do, right? The only person that can stop you is you. So back to the honesty and encouragement. We'll start with the honesty. I really hated my first year of law school. It's putting it nicely. I mean, we're talking about an unmitigated, deeply seated, white-hot hate. Almost Trump-like in its level of intensity. I can't say that. Oh, I didn't say that. Can we edit that out later? Sorry. Can we edit that out? Sorry. I should move on. Let's just say it was very bad. It was horrible. One of the worst things I ever experienced, and I was miserable. It got better my second and third year. It got much, much better. But I'd be lying if I said that I enjoyed law school. Now, that was the honesty part. So what about the encouragement, right? Because know your audience. As we've heard from others, I love being a lawyer. I am in love with being a lawyer. I love what I do. I love just everything about the profession. I didn't enjoy law school, but I love the things that I got out of law school. What did I get out of law school, he asked rhetorically. I got a breadth of knowledge, the ability to issue spot, the ability to think critically and neutrally, plus the ability to be an advocate for the things and causes in which I believe. I love the platform that being a lawyer gives me personally and professionally. When I'm in meetings at work, there's an automatic assumption that because I'm a lawyer, I must know what I'm talking about. It's often true. Sometimes it's not. And, you know, I love the fact that my understanding of the Constitution and the law gives me an insight into legislation, politics, public policy, and history that non-lawyers don't have. Right? I learned these things in law school. That's what law school gave to me, and it was painful, right? So growth sometimes is right. Growth through pain. But I'm here, and my law professors taught me how to answer questions that were carefully designed, not to necessarily have right answers, right? And they taught me, and this was just as important. They taught me to assess and examine the question, right? Because before you can really answer the question, you have to understand what the question is, what it means, and where it's going. You couldn't have told me at the time, but it was worth it. Law school was absolutely worth it for me. It was worth the sleepless nights and the long hours in the library. It was worth reading those dry opinions and making all those outlines, or occasionally finding other people's outlines and using those to supplement my own. Because you gotta learn how to work smart and hard. The other thing law school gave me was confidence in my ability to figure out the answer, right? Because you will spend your career being asked questions, and you're expected to know a lot of the time, most of the time. You're not expected to know all the time. What you have to be able to do is find the answer, whether it's through your own research or the research of others, by asking questions, by asking the right questions. In my case, I frequently get asked things like, hey Charles, what do the Iraqi laws say on, payroll issues for our American employees working overseas? I have no idea. Why would I know that? But I'll get you the answer by the end of the day, because I'm going to call my outside counsel who specialize in this area, and I'll find out, and I'll get you the answer. That's what I do, right? I know as much as I can know. What I can't know, I figure out where to get it. Let me back up and tell you why I hated my first year of law school so much, because that's what you really want to know, right? What was it about it? I want you to think of this conference as a lesson. I'll get to that in a second. Think of this conference as a lesson, and let me tell you a cautionary tale of what happened to me. There's nothing inherently bad about the first year of law school. It is what it is. It's hard. Everybody will agree with that. It was really hard for me, though, because even though I did relatively well in undergrad and I had a pretty good LSAT score, I walked in to my first day of law school completely unprepared. And I say that because I hadn't done and hadn't even really thought about the things that you need to think about when you're a first-year law student. What is the most critical skill for any first-year law student? In my opinion, it's being able to read and analyze and outline cases, right? That's what you do your first year of law school. You have to know how to do that. You have to know how to read those opinions. And guess what? For me, it didn't come naturally. It didn't come easily. I sat down, read my first opinion, and it was literally like reading a foreign language. The wording, the structure, the nomenclature, the circular language of it all was new and foreign to me. And I was a foreign language major in undergrad, but I took a bunch of poli-sci courses because I heard that's what you're supposed to do, right? You take a lot of poli-sci courses to get ready for law school. I'm not entirely sure why that's the answer or why that makes any sense, but it was conventional wisdom, so it's what I did. Didn't help me. And so that first year, I was lost. I was flailing wildly, trying to get traction, trying to understand not just the finer points of the debate, of the discussion, of what they were talking about in these cases. I was just trying to understand them and figure out who won, right? Who did the judge rule in favor of? Because this just isn't clear to me. And so I was woefully underprepared. Not because I wasn't smart, not because I wasn't reasonably perceptive. I just didn't get it. It was all just, everything was a jumble for me. And I'm telling you this, I mean, it all worked out fine, trust me. But I'm telling you this because I want you to have the skills that you need, the basic skill set that you need, so that on day one, when you walk in, on day one, you will have read the cases in a way that allows you to understand them, And start now, right? Go out and find some old cases online. There's sort of 10 standard cases that everybody studies everywhere across the country in the first year curriculum. Find some of those and make sure you can read them, right? All of us here, everybody here wants to go to law school. Understand what that means. Understand what you will be doing as a law student. I'm completely off on my notes. I'm going to sort of give you, as others have done, I'm going to give you sort of my 5 tips for not success, but things that will allow you to at least make good decisions. The first one I would say is know yourself. And by that I mean, ask yourself this question, and ask it fresh in your mind here today. Ask yourself if you really want to go to law school, right? Because we get in this rut, we get in this pattern of deciding that we're going to do something, because I did it. We decide that we're going to do something, and then once it's in our mind, we don't really investigate it anymore. And so ask yourself today, do I really want to go to law school? And I hope the answer is yes, but if it's not, admit that at least to yourself. And then ask yourself why you want to go to law school, right? Is it because the job market's not great right now and you want to buy another 3 more years? Do you have something specific in mind? Do you just want the general knowledge and power that having a JD gives you? Ask yourself, there's no right answer, but ask yourself why. Number 2, know what you're getting into, right? You just heard from me the cautionary tale about somebody who didn't know what he was getting into. I didn't know what law school looked like. I didn't know what it meant to read cases. I didn't know how to brief a case. I didn't know the kind of psychological impact that was going to that was going to affect me, because my entire grade, my first semester, was based on 1 exam. That's a big deal, right? Because in every other schooling I've had, there was always quizzes and tests along the way, and I could sort of, start off strong and maintain or increase that. With law school, with the exams, you get 1 shot. Do not oversleep. Trust me, it's not good. So know what you're getting into. What does a semester look like? Know how to read and brief cases, right? Start early, start now. Let it become second nature to you, so that when you walk in your first day, you can participate in the discussions about the finer points instead of trying to figure out what an appellant is, right? I mean, it's shocking to admit that now, to hear that, but that's actually the world that I lived in back then. And I say that despite, and you've heard about my family, you've heard that my grandfather was this amazing attorney, and he was. And I have the distinct advantage of coming from a family that, I'm not first or even second generation college. But I didn't have anybody to tell me specifically, because my grandfather died in 1950, well before I was born, when my father was a child. My father's not a lawyer. I didn't have anybody tell me, sit down and say, all right, son, these are the things you need to know for law school. I'd always been told, oh, work hard, education's important, you'll get there. Yeah, I worked hard, education is important. I got there, and I struggled. And I righted the ship, and I came back with a vengeance my second and third year. But so much better for you if you start off strong and stay that way. The LSAT. You have to do well. It's just that simple. You have to do well. It's what the law schools look at. It's what they care about. It's metrics. You have to do well. You have to do your absolute best. And the only way you can do that, guys, the only way that you can maximize your potential in the LSAT, you've got to take a course. You have to. People will tell you, oh, I studied on my own. Great. Good for you. It's a fool's errand, frankly. It's a fool's errand to do that. I have no particular loyalty or affinity to any of the dozens of companies that offer them. Find the one that works best for you. Take it. Costs a lot of money. If you can't afford that, if you can't afford to take the class, maybe you're not ready, right? This is the honesty portion of the program. If you can't afford the LSAT course right now, you should wait, in my opinion. you should wait until you can so that you can take that test fully prepared. See, understand that the LSAT is sort of the great divider. It separates, you know, it's the difference between getting into your school of choice and not getting in. But it's also the difference between just getting in and getting an academic scholarship because you have the strong GPA and the LSAT, right? So take the course. Choose your school wisely. This is number 4. Choose your school wisely. There are 4 factors to think about, as I see it: academics, cost, admission, and, you know, sort of post-law school opportunities. In other words, is it a good school for you? Can you afford it? Are you going to get in? Once you're done, what are you going to do? What are your options going to be? So choose your school wisely. Pick the one that's best for you. Sounds basic, I know, but think about it. Number 5, network. Find a mentor or 2 or 5. Have somebody in your corner who cares about you, who cares about your development as a lawyer, who can say to you, yeah, I know it's hard, I know it sucks, but you're going to be fine. And by the way, here's some tips. Here's how to handle X, Y, and Z. Yoga and tater tots. I love that story. It's fantastic. But find somebody who can guide you along the path. One of the speakers, I think it was Tina, who said that every job she's ever gotten has been as a result of people she knows. Me too. Every single one. I mean, every single one. And it happens all the time. It happens in professional settings. It happens in social settings. You have to always know the person you're talking to could be somebody very important in the profession, or could know somebody very, very important in the profession, or you'll need them down the road one day. As far as mentors go, right? How many of you in here have a mentor? Raise your hand. A little more than half. It's not enough. You need one. You need more than one, right? And so, because you're here today, it tells me that you're the kind of person that sees an opportunity and you seize it and you go after it and you grab it. This is an opportunity that you cannot pass up. The chance to interface with folks on this panel, the other lawyers you'll meet during this conference, you absolutely must take full advantage of it. Ask for cards, follow up with people, look them up on LinkedIn, do whatever you have to do. Reach out to folks. Understand everybody's busy, but those of us who think it's important, and I think everybody on this panel falls into that category, those of us who think it's important, we'll find the time. We'll figure it out. If you email me or message me, I promise you, I'll respond. It's important because I got where I am. I've had some measure of professional success because people helped me, and so that's why I'm here. I'm here because I am paying back Judge Keith by helping you, and I owe him a debt, which means that I got to be here for you, and I'm happy to do it. That's all I have for the aspiring law students, but let me just remind my fellow lawyers in the room of some words, and you know where I'm going with this later. I mentioned the phrase social engineer. My grandfather said that a lawyer is either a social engineer or a parasite on society. That's harsh, but it's true. What is a social engineer? I'm glad you asked. A social engineer is a highly skilled, perceptive, sensitive lawyer who understands the Constitution of the United States and knows how to explore its uses in the solving of the problems of local communities. A social engineer is somebody who will consistently and competently interpret the rights, grievances, and aspirations of our people. And that means that we have to help you. We understand, we know that we didn't achieve what we achieved on our own, right? Not entirely. All of us know that we walked down a path that had been blazed for us by others. We had opportunities and doors open for us that weren't available to our ancestors. They created chances for us. They created the path down which we could walk. My job is to widen that path so that you can run down it, so that you can meet and exceed your goal. And when you do, not if, but when you do, you will have a duty to be a social engineer. You will have a duty to reach back and help the future generations. That's all I have. Thank you.